And we are recording. Welcome, everybody, to platformOS Town Hall number 69. And we're just one away from 70. And there will be a huge celebration when we hit that number 70, because 70 is a very special number. But today it's special because Maciek, our CTO, will be taking us through a bit of a walk over what has been happening in the background and what we have planned for the future. I know it's been a little while since Maciek was on the spot, put in the hot seat. So we thought we'd just throw him under the bus and get him to do this right off the back of his holiday that he had. And we just thank you, Maciek, for being up late your evening, as well as Pavel. I see Pavel's lurking around. I think he's probably going to correct us if we don't get this image processing thing quite right. We're going to cover off a couple of things. There's me and my try-hard beard and mustache, because Maciek can always grow one better than me. But the team actually bought me that little knitted mustache beard years ago because it was the only thing I could actually grow and keep on my face. Today we're going to cover multi-cloud. This has been an aim of platformOS to be infrastructure agnostic from the beginning. Of course, we're very tied to AWS as far as it's the preeminent infrastructure as a hosting service, and that isn't changing. We're not saying we're moving off AWS, we're just saying we're going to provide choice. So Google Cloud partnership is fantastic, as is Microsoft Azure. That's another partnership we're just holding off on closing, because once we get to Google Cloud, we know we'll be able to deploy just as easily with a few tweaks to Azure. So the architecture of platformOS has always had that in mind. We're going to take you through the details a little bit there. Bug fixes and UX improvements, always good to have those done, and security performance updates that Maciek will take us through, as well as the user-defined image processing feature that's been a work in progress. We've been doing a lot of things. Pavel's been instrumental in helping us to get the S3 image uploads directly, as well as other file uploads. This is taking it to another level where you can do all the image manipulation. You could be doing that in a number of ways, which Maciek will show you. And for those clever people amongst us who are doing really cool things with UIs and making drag and drop and JavaScript widgets that do things, you'll be able to then pass those commands off and make it really simple for the non-technical user. It'll be good. You'll be able to resize and crop and compress and change formats from JPEG to PNG or whatever it is to whatever it is, do blur and grayscale and color treatments and versioning and all of those things on your terms, not on our terms. So that's going to be great. And then Siteglide is in Cancun. Why don't we get those invites? But anyway, a little quick update on that. So without further ado, let me get through and say thanks again for being our amazing partners. Scott Reynolds and Daniel, I see you on the video sitting side by side, and I'm calling you out because I've been doing demos where I create an instance, I deploy sign, I deploy video, and the platformOS blog. It all just works. And then I go in and sign up as a user. Then I go into the video profiling feature and I do a video recording and a screenshot and a playback. It's just, I actually did it in a cafe on my phone with a technical guy, Mike Kiriakou, who's an Australian entrepreneur who lectures at Berkeley on machine learning. And he was like, wow, that's awesome. So thanks, guys. Your stars. All right, Google Cloud, what's going on? As I said, infrastructure as a service is amazing. It has revolutionized things. Business Catalyst back in the day, we built our own server infrastructure, had our own data centers in Equinix data centers that we put our own racks with our own servers, and it was fantastic. They were the days when you had blade servers and memory and solid state drives that cost you an arm and a leg and all of that stuff, and SANs and NASs, and then had to deal with the hardware breaking. AWS revolutionized things, made it incredibly easy for us, but we do not want lock-in. Nobody wants to be locked in. That's why we have chosen to use great open source technologies with our platform, things that all developers should be familiar and happy with using, as well as offering different cloud providers, including our own infrastructure services if we wanted to put our own servers out there, or in the case of some enterprises, they might want to put dedicated servers in a secure facility with a VPN for developers to deploy to. So we're thinking long term. We applied for the Google Cloud partnership. Well, we didn't actually, we got invited. So I did a presentation and I showed Partner Portal and I was like, this is the old version. This hasn't got the new UI yet. Here's the new UI. And I went into Figma and I showed them all these cool things and then, oh, that looks nice. But what they got impressed about was when I was able to set up a endpoint to a data center, and for that data center then to become selectable when you deploy an instance. So you go into your instance, you say, put it on staging, put it on production, put it on UK, put it on wherever. And they were like, we want to have all of our regions listed there for developers to be able to deploy. And I said, well, so do we. And they then sent this email internally, and I got an invitation. Hi there. We're excited to let you know that a Googler has nominated your company for the Google Cloud Startup Program. Within minutes after filling in the forms, we then got another email that said we're approved. So platformOS approved for the startup program. This is the Google Cloud Partnership for companies who are building things that will scale and make it easy for developers to deploy, and making Google Cloud a choice amongst the infrastructure services that we have. So this is really awesome. We're on the road. We've already got weekly check-ins with the Google Cloud team. So we have a dedicated architecture team there that are doing all the mapping between AWS and Google Cloud. We're using Kubernetes and Terraform already, and so it's not that difficult. And for all the services that we use at AWS, there's an equivalent or better, we'll see, version on Google Cloud. One great thing that's come out recently about Google Cloud is their quantum computing. So, hey, maybe we can do some machine learning stuff instantly. Instead of 25,000 years, it'll take 2 minutes. So that'll be great for all that stockbroking algorithms that I'm sure Ursula's probably got running in the background. All right, it's Maciek's turn. I always give him the easy ones like bug fixes and UX improvements. Over to you, mate.
Thank you. Yes, so our main focus obviously remains making the platform as reliable and as intuitive as possible. So the detailed change set you can see in release notes, so we keep it up to date. It's updated every Monday, so it includes the list of all the fixes and improvements that we've been doing. Some of the highlights that we've been doing recently is around GraphQL, and to be more detailed, it was about better type support. So per your feedback, some of the issues that were raised were that everything in GraphQL was returned as a string. And this is something that we changed. And you got access to new attributes like property int, property boolean. So you can now have control what type GraphQL we return. So everything in Liquid will be way simpler. You won't need to use workarounds and hacks. You can get the right type straight from GraphQL. Also things like ordering by property, which was of type integer, which previously was working like a string, it's now there. So numbers will be sorted properly. And generally, you shouldn't have so much issues. Actually, you shouldn't have now any issues with various types when you work with GraphQL. So obviously, we are looking for your feedback, and hopefully this will make your experience much better. Another thing is obviously improving documentation, error messages, and adding validations whenever it is missing. So we've been adding a bunch of those, and again, the details are in the release notes. Some of the highlights of what we are currently working on is related models. And we will allow you to fetch related models not only by single integer, so assuming that you have a parent which has many children, you can now you will be able to have array of IDs of the children in the parent, and then fetch all the children immediately using the array of IDs. This is something that a couple of our partners were asking for, and we are almost done with implementing it, and it should be in QA early next week. Another thing that you've been waiting for some time, and it's currently in QA, is removing the 50 megabytes limit per deploy. And this, we expect to make it optional initially for you. So the ones who would like to help us testing it and make sure that nothing breaks will be able to use special flag to bypass this limit. But the default will remain the same for backwards compatibility, and to make sure that none of your regular workflow is disturbed unless you are willing to try the new feature. And last but not least, we are planning to work on versions in logs. So you will get access via GraphQL to our logs, which includes the change set of every object. So you will be able to see when and by who and how each object has been changed. So for example, how model has been changing, or user that was updated, which again, a lot of you have asked for quite some times, and we are planning to release it in November. So this should be accessible via GraphQL. And we'll keep you posted about the progress, but those are our, this is our biggest ambition, to give you finally the access to this kind of data. Yeah, this is for the current backface and UX improvements. The next topic is security and performance updates. So, and this is something that we don't really brag about, because this requires internal work, and it's not really something that has direct impact on you. We sometimes just brag about some success stories. Recently, we've managed to upgrade the core framework of our platform, which usually involves high risk and takes a lot of effort and takes a lot of time. And we are happy to say that it was actually seamless. So you shouldn't see when the core framework was upgraded, because there were actually no issues at all. We've put a lot of effort into improving our test suites. Our pipeline takes quite a lot of time to process, but that's because we have so many various tests, not only unit and integration tests on the code level, but also end-to-end tests on various marketplaces and our example sites. So this upgrade proves how big step forward we've made with our automated testing. Of course, this upgrade involves security patches and performance improvements. So this is not something that you will immediately see like, oh, now everything is blazing fast, because those are not the type of updates, but it should be more stable. And basically, if you don't see any problems, it means that it works. Yes. One important feature that we are planning to release soon is remake of our post-CLI authorization. And what it will allow you to do is to use one single token per instance. Right now, the token is shared. So some of you have asked to have more granular permissions, and this update will allow you to do it. Of course, the old way will still work for backwards compatibility, but for those of you and for new instances, if you would like, for new instances, this will be the default. So we'll generate just one token per instance. But if you would like to change it, change your existing tokens for existing sites, you will also be able to easily do it. And that's probably our biggest update for security. And I guess we can move on to the demo of user-defined image processing. Would you like, Adam, me to share the screen? Oh, you are on mute, but I assume you said yes.
Yes, yes. I'm just gonna, oh, I've stopped now, so it's all you, mate.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen? And it should include GraphQL editor. Yes, awesome. Okay, so we've provided a new mutation, which is called image person URL. And what it does, it allows you to define your own version in a nice format with autocomplete, and everything is explained. So you can create as many versions as you want. Right now, you can name them any way you want. And it's quite powerful. It allows you to do things like compression. You can even change format if you want. So we support JPG, PNG. So no matter what file the user uploads, the output file will be of certain type. So which should help you with performance by saving some unnecessary kilobytes. And you can also manipulate the image in various ways. Some examples I've prepared for you is resizing to make an image exactly a square using fill property. And if you don't know what fill does, you can use our automatically generated documentation to read that it ignores the aspect ratio of the input and stretch to both provided dimensions. So no matter what image will be uploaded, the end result will be 500 pixels of height and 500 pixels of width. Another example would be temp, which will use different fit format. It will use cover. So what all it does will just take a portion of the image and using the center, from the center, calculating, and it will be maximum 100% height and 100 and maximum of 100 pixels width. But you can all do way more than this. You can, for example, turn the image into grayscale if you need it, blur it, flatten, like do all kind of stuff. I encourage you to play yourself and see how it works. You use it very similar to how you use the previous DirectX 3. Actually, it doesn't change as much. The only thing that really has changed is the key, but it will be seamless for you. So really, if you have working DirectX 3 upload, you can immediately start using this new mutation and leverage from the new versions. For the purpose of this demo, I've used our example, which will be updated soon. It's not yet, but I've manually updated the key in the form to upload the image to S3. And only this allowed us to create already 4 different images, like 3 versions, and the original one was copied. So once this is done, you get access to the image. And sorry for my voice. And then you can use this image like any other image. So you can assign it the property. In my demonstration, we have a profile type called developer, which has a field called avatar. So I will use this image to store it as an avatar for the user. So I've created the user with my email, and I fetch the ID of the user and the ID of the profile, and then I can use a custom image create mutation to associate this uploaded image with this profile, to this user, and the attribute name is avatar. And what it did was actually doing exactly this. So after it, you are able to just fetch the image as you used to do. The URL is automatically changed to the one you wanted, and you have immediately access to all the versions. So it's asynchronous, but it's very quick. So if you use it in production, you should be able to expect that the images are almost immediately created for you. And the end result is that we have our original image. So I use the homepage of our platformOS site. And here are the versions which were generated based on this configuration. So we have square, we have a tab, which is 100, 100, and then we have grayscaled and blurred image. And really it is the most powerful thing here is all the kind of versions that you can create and filters, and the fact that there won't be any performance bottlenecks the way we've implemented it. So you can just use it and make sure that you serve the image which is required by the user and not the bigger one. So it really will help you achieve higher scores in various analytics tools, and of course users will see it because they won't be downloading megabytes of images unnecessarily, because you have full control of what the users see. That's pretty much it. We expect to release this feature fully early next week with updated example and documentation. Yeah, if you had any questions, feel free to ping me or Pavel, who has taken care of implementing all the hard parts of it. So thank you, Pavel, very much for doing it. Yeah, over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Maciek. And I will be wrapping it up with, and I know it's late for Maciek, so I'm conscious of how long he's going to have to stay up. So great work on that. As Maciek pointed out, it's going to be really cool for developers because you can have optimized images for profiles and for listing displays in the search results versus the detailed view of a product, product thumbnailing. It's endless, right? Especially for mobile usage, where you want to get those 100 out of 100 Google page speed scores. And if you've got a marketplace or you're allowing users to upload images, you can enforce certain standards and then use those versions for display on search results on a mobile versus desktop. So a lot of flexibility and power there. Siteglide are in Cancun. It's just purely for bragging. They're not in the meeting today because, as you all know from previous, they won the big contract with WSI franchise, the We Simplify the Internet franchise group, which was one of Business Catalyst's largest customers and partners. Huge. They had a lot of sites, a lot of internet consultants globally. And so given the end of life, they went out to the world and said, hey, what's something that's going to help us not just replace Business Catalyst, but go to the next level? Siteglide has won that contract, which is fantastic. They're in Cancun because they are presenting Siteglide and how you migrate away from Business Catalyst onto the Siteglide platformOS powered solution. So kudos to them for that. Just want to give them a shout out. They'll obviously come back and share their learnings with everybody in the community. And that is the final slide, apart from thank you and questions. Does anybody have any questions? Did I share my screen, by the way, during that whole thing?
I think you have not.
Oh, I'm a silly sausage. Let me just quickly share my screen so you can actually see what I was talking about, because it's probably mentioned in the chat that I wasn't sharing. Share. There we go. And now we present. I had photos and all. And I'm like, hang on, this doesn't look right. There we go. Siteglide is in Cancun. Here's the photographic evidence as sent by Luke. And yeah, they're sitting on the beach. But most of the time is spent indoors at the convention, and they are happily doing demos and taking people through the migration process off of BC onto Siteglide's platformOS powered beta solution. And it's very exciting for them. So between that and that, we can all be jealous. All right, they will return victorious. So I'll stop sharing. Questions, let's go into the questions. Richard is asking, can you scale the image via percentage rather than a hard resize amount of width and height? I'm going to just say yes, because that would be logical and make total sense, but I'll let Maciek or even Pavel.
Yeah, not really, I think. So no, it's static value. I'm wondering, so the use cases that we have in mind are that, for example, you have a place on the site, like, you want to display something, and next to post, for example, you might want to display user avatar. So it makes sense for you, like when you plan the layout, you want to imagine like what's the maximum size that would be required for this page to be loaded correctly, and those are the values that you provide. If you put the percentages in this use case, like you know, if someone uploaded a very big image, it would have different value than if someone provided very small image, and that's probably not you want to achieve in this use case. But if you think about use cases where it makes sense, then we are happy to consider adding these extra options. However, for standard web development, I think that static value is what you want like 99% of the time. So this is the only option right now available.
I'm guessing that there's nothing to stop a front-end developer defining a percentage in CSS or something anyway. Oh, there we go. Daryl's just said, hey, you can use percentage values in CSS. So this is for transforming the image, getting the right general sizes, and then at the front end, doing whatever further treatment you like.
Correct. So it's basically to make sure that the picture is not bigger, like in terms of size in megabytes than necessary, or kilobytes, to be exact, than necessary. Yes.
Yeah, it's all about optimization on the size and getting the best image for the size for the various versions that you're creating, and then letting the front end developer do the finessing with percentages as needed, especially around a responsive view.
Yes. So one particular benefit of having those filters is that you can actually exactly define what the output version will be. So you shouldn't need to stretch it in after the resize. Like the resizing allows you to take exactly what you need from the picture and have the exact dimensions, and you can define the strategy as I showed, like how this chunk of the picture should be taken. Like, for example, if someone uploads square but you want some kind of rectangle, you define maximum width, maximum height, and then the filter will take care of taking from the picture what's most likely the most important thing. So usually it's from the center.
Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, another quick question about the image. Is it all dynamic, like as the pictures or the image is being rendered and shown to the user? Is that when this is taking place? Or is it the GraphQL actually creates another image and stores it, and then you take that and then, yeah, okay. I see you nodding.
Yeah,
so yeah.
It's once the image is treated via that upload and those instructions, it's rendering it, and it will do it at scale. So if we've got 100,000 sites all uploading images simultaneously that need to be processed, it just scales. So they will then be stored, and you'll be handed back the S3 reference for that, based on the user ID, the object ID, and other things. Is that right, Maciek? Do I sound like I know what I'm talking about?
So what you define really is the upload URL. If I will show my screen again and show the first slide. I just need to find, okay. Yes, so here you can see it's pre-sign URL. So the idea is that you get really the attributes to the form. So this is the action. Maybe I can show it again how this form is built, because it will be a little bit more technical, but should be fine. So here we have form, and the action is the upload URL, and attributes, so parameters that you need to include during the request to this endpoint are based on what you define in the GraphQL. So the versions are generated when you upload the file, and we know what versions to generate because those are the attributes to those are the parameters basically to the server. So you send a file along with this extra information how this file should be resized. So here you can.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And just to be completely clear, let's say I have an image and I want to show it 10 different ways to be optimized, or for whatever reason. Every time an image goes through this process, there'll be 10 images like saved, stored on AWS.
Yes, so you upload one file and then we'll output 10 different files, each already ready for you to to fetch and turn on your.
All optimized, compressed, and treated and manipulated as per your specification.
Correct. And
Awesome.
Pavel can confirm, but I believe even if you don't specify the compression yourself, we do the harmless one nevertheless, because you can compress usually without losing quality. And if it's possible, then we will just automatically apply it. So just to help users and to just protect them from forgetting things.
So as long as we have access to the original, we can then create new versions?
Yes.
I've got one more question, and it's completely not to do with anything that's been discussed today. Background tasks. You can do background tasks using async and things like that, but there was talk of a better way, you might say, another way that you could do background tasks in the system. So a completely dedicated way of creating background tasks by in a time frame, say like every 24 hours or something like that. Obviously it can be done using a form and async tasks and things like that. But how is there a way of doing that currently? Can we perform tasks that would be performed on a user's action in the background?
I mean, so you have access to the background liquid stack, which you can schedule when it should be triggered, and then you provide the liquid code, which should be invoked when the time is right. So in liquid, you can also specify the priority of it, and the priority also defines the maximum amount of time this task can run. And within this background tag, you can use any graphical you want. You can use it, for example, to generate a report, upload it to S3 in the background, and all kind of things. So that's the newest way of involving.
Yeah. So what was that in Liquid? I haven't even seen that. What were you talking about with regards to Liquid?
Yeah, do we have if we can get a link to a document, that's probably the best bet.
I just didn't hear the Liquid. So in Liquid, how do we define that? Like what's the Liquid variable for that? Or
yeah, I will paste the link to the documentation, which includes some examples. And if you had any follow-up questions, I would be more than happy to help and add some more detail. But I hope that
cool.
it covers it nicely.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. No, I see what you're meaning with regards to the.
Can you paste that link in chat as well, Maciek, just so everyone can read that, and then I'll pop that in the inner circle. Oh, nice. There we go.
Okay, I've pasted it in the chat.
All right, perfect. We'll just share the screen so all can see that specifically. This is the link.
I see. Yeah, no, that's cool. There's so much stuff in Liquid that, like, it wasn't a specific thing, but I just remember from a while back, and I was just curious, so I haven't really looked properly. But yeah, that looks awesome.
Great.
So I have a question about the logs that you were talking about earlier. You were saying that we're going to have access to basically more data coming from the logs. Do you see that as more like an admin, like if we have an issue, we can go back and look, or do you see it more like having like an activity log? Let's say our user goes into a CRM and they can see their activity. How do you see us using that?
Yeah, initially I would say it more as a tool for kind of security and audit. So when something happens and you want to know why certain object reached a state, for example, something was deleted or something got updated and has weird value, you can see when this object was updated, by who, and how it really happened. So usually scenario is that user complains that there is a bug, and the data disappeared, or a record is missing, so then you can check in those logs and see, oh, but you have actually deleted it at this time, and things like this. So that's something that you might really benefit from the scenario. In terms of activity feed, we have our feature, which is called really activity feed, and it's optimized to display or to render things like activities in general. So things like similar to Facebook wall and other things. So if you want to do it at scale, so for example, render it for every user, then we certainly suggest using activity feed. But if it's just for the admin, for example, then you should be fine using this feature and display it in UI as well.
That answer the question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thoughts, feedback? Oh, there was a question actually. Ursh was wondering where the transition happened between what we were talking about as platformOS update and then mentioning Siteglide and Cancun. They were slated to do an eCommerce update for everybody to highlight some of the e-commerce functionality that they're presenting and going live with. So that was a little cameo for them because they weren't here. So they will revert back in the next couple of weeks. They'll probably need to recover once they get back from their conference in Cancun. All right, I hope that answers that, Ursh. Now, also, Ursh is asking whether it is automatic or then requires hooking in the existing way the system is developed.
Maybe I should just, I'll just talk what I mean. With a lot of the things that are happening in platformOS, what I'm trying to understand in my brain is how that then relates to applications like Siteglide, because I'm assuming some are just automatically usable and others mean they have to do something before we can access that functionality, if that makes sense. Still not too much making too much sense.
Do you have a...
Should I say it another way?
Yeah, try it one more time.
I'll try one more time. So platform, say with the image thing, which looks amazing, that doesn't necessarily mean that I can go onto Siteglide today and use that image editing, does it?
Correct. That's
how
right.
does that work is what I'm asking.
It's backward compatible. So if they have used the direct S3 upload, and as Maciek was showing, there's a different way that you can put in the identifier or the slug or something technical sounding, and it will be backward compatible. These are new features that have been enhanced so that now you can do all this transformation. The developer who's building on platformOS would then need to leverage it. So we'll be sharing those best case scenarios, code examples that'll come out next week. And then Siteglide and Scott and Daniel and everybody else, Daryl, etc., we'll probably jump in there and start playing around and adding it to the content management system or the e-commerce system or the file management system that they have built on the platform. So it will then become available through Siteglide and others as they leverage that feature. But it won't break anything that they've already done. It will just enhance the opportunities for what's there to do things better and more flexibly.
From what I saw,
that's what I found. Yeah.
From what I saw of Siteglide-ish, it's not like BC where you still do have access to the backend through Siteglide. So if it really came to the crunch, that still could be developed on your instance of Siteglide by another developer if required, unlike BC where you were just dead in the water and you had no way of nowhere to go. So from what I saw of Siteglide, there is the possibility that it could be extended if that's a feature that Siteglide haven't implemented yet that you desperately needed urgently.
Cool, thank you. I think that's a specific example, and when I'm seeing things on platformOS, that's always a question for me. Is that something that's instantly, because there must be things that are instantly usable, and then there's other features like this which require you know, implementation for us to be able to access it through another platform like the SaaS.
Definitely, yeah. Examples being existing functionality that gets an enhancement, which is background processing, or a new technique that is replacing an existing API endpoint that's already being consumed by the front-end developers. That will be seamless, and you'll just keep getting those enhancements like security and bug fixes and other things. And then for new feature enhancements, Daniel put it really well. You could bolt that in if you wanted to, if you didn't want to wait for a roadmap from another developer who's building on platformOS, or you could just go with the flow when Siteglide adds it, or CBO adds it, or whoever adds it to their platform. It'll then just work. Any other questions? Well, I'm going to jump in now and we'll close it off, because I know that Maciek is needing the matches under his eyelids soon and has earned a rest. And I will sign off. We thank you all for joining us, and hopefully the updates are going to be useful for you to all to play with. I'm sure that we're going to get some feedback and ideas and requests, as inevitably these new features do, but we really want to just focus on keeping things as simple as possible, so that we can do the hard labor on the back end, so that you can do whatever you need to on the front end and really have optimized solutions for your clients. So thank you all for participating. Great questions as always. Maciek, thank you for being here and demoing, and thank you, Pavel, for also endorsing us by not telling us we didn't do it right, because we did it mostly right. And thanks for all the great work that Pavel's done in the background in verifying different things and really helping us to do this scaling behind the scenes. So a lot of collaboration with the team goes on when it comes to this. Piotr was also involved in building out this functionality, as well as Derek on the configuration changes that happen in the back end that you don't see. And as Maciek pointed out, some huge upgrades have gone on behind the scenes in terms of lots of database upgrades and different things seamlessly. So security through obscurity and seamless upgrades that you wouldn't know happen unless we'd told you. So that's all part of what we're doing here, and hope to continue making a big difference for your businesses. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, night. We'll see you next town hall. Bye for now.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.